In our next example, we'll look at, we're going to go over to the inventory section here. And what we'll do is, just to show you kind of our goal here. So if we look at items, we have this item master data that comes with the system. And if I were to add a column in here, and I wanted to add this, we don't have a price, unit price, list price. We don't have that information available automatically because that's stored in a different table. So a common request that we'll get is that, users would like to see their item master data and they want to see this list price field as well. So in this case, what we can do then is create a new one and link that to the other table. So I want to actually start with a brand new fresh one. So I'm going to actually highlight the inventory folder up here. If I were to highlight items and click new, you'll notice that it automatically adds those fields for me. In this case, I want to start from scratch, but I want it to get loaded in this inventory folder. So I'll click new at the top here. And this opens up the new SmartList again that we saw earlier. And I'll give it a name. So I'm going to call this one item gross profit, since we're going to pull the price, the cost, and then we'll calculate the gross profit as well as a calculated field. And this time what I'm going to do though is instead of going to the Dynamics GP table, I want to actually start with a view that's already created that has a lot of the item information on there. So I'm going to go to views and then expand company. And when I do this, it's going to basically load all the smart lists that are already out there, all the views that they're built off of. So I could see accounts, account summary, account transactions, which are all in this financial section up here. I could also see actual views that might have been created that were custom. So I can get to all of those different types of views in here. So I'm going to go to the one that's called items and open that up. So this is the view that the item smart lists are based off of. And I'm just going to select a few fields here. I want my item number, my description and type. And then I'd like to also, I need my current cost so that I can calculate my gross profit. And then I'll also add my generic description and my item class code, just so we have some basic information about our items in there. So if I want, I can execute this just to make sure that I'm getting some data at this point. So I have one table and I'm seeing all my data in here, so it looks good. So now what I need to do though is, since the price is not contained within this items table here, I'd like to actually add a new table and link it. So if I go to the very top here, now I'm going to go back to Microsoft Dynamics GP and open up the tables. And I'll expand inventory. And I need to actually grab this field from the item currency master. So I'll scroll down to find that. So here's my item currency master. If I expand that, I can see that there's a field now. It's called list price. So that's the field that I'm looking for here that I want to add to my new smart list. And since I added an additional table, I have to create a relationship like we did in the last example. So I'll select items as my main table here, and I'm just going to link by the item number. And I'll do a left join again, and I'm linking it to my new table, the item currency master that I just selected. And in that table, it's also called item number. So it's a pretty easy relationship there to link those two together. And now that I did that, if I click execute query again, and I look over here on the right, I should see now I have my list price as well for these items. So that's a good start. And so now what we'd like to do though is we'd like to add a calculated field and actually take the difference between that list price and that current cost field that we added earlier and create a new calculated field as the gross profit. So to create a calculated field, you just click this icon up here, and it'll bring me to my new window here. So I'm going to click Add, and I'm just going to give it a name. So I'll call it gross profit. And then I need to tell it the output type. In this case, it's going to be a currency. And then down here, you'll see that you have the different tables that you can pull from to create this calculated field. And then it's broken up with this other tab. It'll show you different functions. So with the functions, what you can do is if you're, as an example, in this case, we're going to be doing, minus. You could come over here and you could expand to arithmetic, and then you can pull the minus or the plus, and we can add that into our expression below. And you'll see those are grouped by different common functions that you might want to use. So there's some related to text. If you want to actually change your text, you can use these different functions. You could change your date and time. There's a couple math, a couple aggregate ones on here. And then there's the constant tab. So if you need to bring in a constant as part of your calculation, you can then just define the type. Text is used a lot, then you could put your value in here, and then as you're building your formula, you can insert off of these different tabs. What's kind of nice is you could certainly use these functions, which we'll do in this example, but then I'll show you in the next example. You could also kind of type in a lot of your formula here and then just insert it directly from this constant tab so that you don't have to keep, clicking back and forth and going to functions. So in this case, we're going to start with our list price. So we'll go to the currency master, which stores the list price, and then I'm just going to double click that. And then we need to do a subtraction. So we could just type it in here, or we could use the function. So I'll use the function in this example. I'll go to arithmetic. And one thing that can be a little annoying to remember is as you're building this formula, it always reverts you back to the beginning of your expression. So you'll want to make sure you always click here first. And you can see now my cursor is in the right spot. And then add, so now I'm going to double click this. There we go. Okay, so now it added my minus sign in the right spot. Otherwise, several times I'd be building calculations and I'd be in the wrong spot. I'd be over here and then it would be adding it there. And then I would have to basically highlight it and then use this delete button to remove that part of the formula. And I had to, keep starting over. So it's a good rule of thumb just to remember anytime you're adding something up here to make sure that you're in the right spot down here first. So we're going to take our list price and then we're going to subtract out our current cost. So that's in our items table. So we'll find that field here. And again, I'll click down here before I add it. And then I'll double click current cost. So now I have list price minus current cost. And when I save that, I'll get this message just confirming the calculated field is valid. So that's good. If if you're putting something in there that doesn't recognize or you didn't use a formula correctly, it would tell you it's not valid. It's not going to tell you exactly what's wrong with it, but at least you'll know that you need to correct your formula before you try to move on. So I'll click OK to that message, and then I need to actually highlight this and then click OK. If I don't highlight it first, it doesn't add the field to my list. So I'm going to click OK. And now when I did that, you'll notice that it added my gross profit calculated field at the very bottom here. So I could click OK. And now you'll see our additional field is up there. You'll notice that the format looks a little bit different. So the other thing we could do is now if we want to change that, we could click modify up here. And then I'll scroll down. And this little symbol right here on the left allows you to change your actual current. It only works on currency fields, but it allows you to change the format. So I could click that symbol. And what I can do is I could display a $sign if I'd like, or I could leave that as none, but at least I could change my decimal places. So I want to keep mine at 2. I don't want to show all 5 decimal places here. So I'm going to switch that over to 2 and then click OK again. And now you'll notice it's just showing the 2 decimal places. And a lot of these don't have prices, so the gross profit's negative. But here's some examples of this one actually has a price. And then we can also move our column over. So if I click columns up here, now this is just basic SmartList functionality, but I can take this current cost field and I can move it down here just so it kind of matches up with our formula. And now we can see we had our list price plus our current costs, and now we have our gross profits here. So under inventory, I have this item gross profit list that we just created. And if I wanted to save my columns and everything, or maybe add additional columns, I could hit favorites and then I can just give that a name. I can name it even the same thing and then add it. But this way it'll hold any modifications that I make and I won't have to redo the column placement, or if I add additional fields, I won't have to redo that every time. So now I have under item gross profit, I just have my item gross profit favorite, which has everything on here the way that I'd like to see it. So that's an example of modifying, working with one of the default views and then adding an additional table to it, and then creating a calculated field off of those 2 tables.